have one item tonight. Show them much attention to pages.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the May 20th Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Chair Peterson,
Here.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Chase,
Here.
Commissioner Samad,
Here.
Commissioner Mishra,
Here.
Commissioner Biasotti.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Johnson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item of business is approval of the minutes for April 15th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is communications. Staff, do we have any communications?
There are no additional communications this evening.
Thank you. Item number 3 is public comment on items not on the agenda. If there's a member of the public who'd like to comment on something that is not on the agenda, this would be your time. I'm seeing none. We'll move on to item 4, which is announcement of conflict of interest. If any commissioner has a conflict of interest on an item tonight, if you'd mention it, that would be helpful. No. Very good. Item 5 are the public hearings, and staff has told me that there's a special instance tonight where agenda item 5C is not really in good order for consideration this evening, and they'd like to move it forward on the agenda so that we can continue it to a date to be determined. But first, so if there's no objection, I'll move item C up to being considered immediately, and then items A and B. Okay, seeing no objection, we'll move forward. Item 5C is 630 San Mateo Avenue, a request for a parking exception to allow a cafe lounge within the CBD per chapters 12, 100, 120 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Rakesh Kumar is the applicant, Shemco Investments the owner. This item, as staff, I mentioned before, staff says that it needs to be assembled to consider some new information. So what I'm going to do tonight is open the public hearing, so if any member of the public is here who would like to comment on it, they have that opportunity, as it's been listed as an item that's available for comment tonight. Then I'll close the public hearing and go forward with a motion to continue. So, I'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on this, please step to the podium. And seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. The chair is open to hear a motion
Through the chair.
on continuation to date to be determined. Commissioner Chase.
I'll make that motion that we continue it to be at a date later to be
Is there
considered.
a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So, the next item is agenda item A, which was only delayed by a few moments. It's 977 Masson Avenue, a request for a use permit to allow an addition that would exceed the .55 FAR guideline per section 12200 30B2 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you and good evening. The subject site is located on the west side of Masson Avenue. It's a 2,500 square foot lot, and it's currently developed with a 2-story house. There has been an active code enforcement case at this site for many years. Those violations are related to an unpermitted second dwelling unit where only one unit is allowed in the R1 residential zoning district. And also they've encroached into the required garage in order to expand the living area. So the garage is now in a substandard condition. The property owner is moving forward, though, with this proposed project to rectify that code enforcement case. And so it includes a 2-story addition to the rear of the house, which would provide a staircase, which would have the internal circulation between the first and second floors. Currently, the structure does not have a staircase connecting the lower level to the upper level. They are also proposing to restore the currently substandard 1-car garage back into a usable depth, and they're also going to remove the second kitchen in the lower level and create one single-family home with internal circulation and a garage. The existing house has a floor area of 1,721 square feet. The proposed addition is 224 square feet for a total floor area of 1,945. That results in a floor area ratio of 0.65. So staff does support this
Through
FAR.
the chair, I may have a conflict of interest. Can I know the property owner's name? Is it the same person?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I don't.
You misspelled her name up so I didn't know if they can talk.
Oh.
It's F-R-A-Z, no N in the last name.
Sorry, apologies from staff on that. So the property owner and the applicant are the same.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm okay.
Okay. So we were talking about the floor area ratio of 0.65. Excuse me. Staff does support this floor area ratio, which is above the threshold of 0.55, given the substandard lot size of 2,500 square feet, and the fact that the addition is primarily for a staircase that's going to provide internal circulation. Also, as mentioned, the 1-car garage would be restored to a usable depth. The proposed living area is 1,735 square feet, which is below the threshold of 1,825. So at this size, as you know, homes are allowed to continue with a 1-car garage. So this is beneath the threshold, at which time you would have to add an additional covered parking space or apply for a use permit for an exception to that rule. The applicant is also proposing to remove the first floor entrance that you can see on your elevations. And so an additional entrance had been added on the first floor to access that lower level. So that would be removed, and it would be restored to the front elevation of how it used to be. And just kind of for illustrative purposes, the picture does show it somewhat. The next door house is kind of like it's like the mirror image. So you can see that the staircase went up and a door had been created underneath it. And so that'll be returned back to the solid surface that it originally was, and not a door. And so the addition is to the rear of the existing home. The materials are proposed to match. It does have a very simple building form currently, and the addition would continue that simple building form, those simple roof lines, but it would comply with today's setback requirements. The existing side setbacks for the home are substandard by today's code. The addition would meet today's setback requirements. The Architectural Review Committee reviewed the project at the December 2013 meeting. The comments of the committee were related primarily to the completeness of the plans and including the level of detail that was needed for full Planning Commission review. Those comments have been integrated into the plans before you tonight. Staff sent a courtesy notice and legal notice. We have not received any comments from surrounding neighbors. Staff would recommend approval of this project. We think it would assist greatly in moving forward with a long-standing code enforcement case that we would like to see resolved. And we think the addition is designed in a well-designed manner that's compatible with the home and at a reasonable floor area ratio, and would return it to a single-family home with internal circulation and compliant parking. So we recommend approval based on findings of fact 1 through 6, and subject to conditions of approval 1 to 26. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Through the chair,
Commissioner Chase.
I got a question. On the proposed square footage, 1,945, correct? That's what our, our table shows us. And 1,945 and 1,825 is the threshold for which you have to have a two-car garage, correct?
That's a good question. On page 3 of the staff report, there are 2 different tables. The upper larger table includes the gross floor area, and that calculation is 1,945. That includes the garage, according to our definitions. And then the second table breaks out living area versus garage space. And you can see in the note below that table that that would be 1,735 square feet of living area. So the garage is not included in that calculation.
Is that normal?
Yeah, that's our customary way of doing it.
Okay. I can't find that.
Any other commissioners have questions for staff before the public hearing? I have one question on the new plan. It looks like the only way in or out of the first floor is through that door at the back. Is that correct? And that's the relocated entrance. The front entrance will be cut off, and a new door will be opened at the rear.
That is correct. There would be internal circulation, so you could get to between the 2 floors, but the only way in the plans out of the first floor would be at the rear, as shown in the plans.
See any concern there from a fire safety standpoint?
A preliminary review was done by the building division, as is customary for a project like this, but we can certainly look into this further. The right side of the house has a very small setback, so they would not have an opportunity to provide an egress location there. It may be possible on the left-hand side, but we would, as always, be looking through the plan check process to make sure that bedrooms have appropriate egress windows if there are not doors.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask the applicant to step forward first, please, and give us whatever presentation you may wish to give. Please give your name and step to the podium, please. Thank you. We record these, so there's a microphone there for you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to correct my name. The correct spelling of my first name is correct, Z-A-H-I-D, and my last name is F-R-A-Z, Fraz.
Thank you.
And I really, nothing to add than what Laura just mentioned. I just like to get this resolved and get within the code enforcement that I need to do that. So I am totally, I think, some error on my part, but I don't want to drag this further. I want to get this resolved as soon as possible so I can be within the code enforcement law.
Great, thank you very much. Any commissioners have a question
Through the chair?
for the applicant?
Yes, through the
Commissioner
chair.
Johnson.
So you've read all of the conditions of approval?
That is correct.
And you've agreed to all of those conditions?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Please step to the podium and give your name and street name for the record. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my name is Don Carlisle, and I live next door at 981 Masson. And while I approve of his project, I also have 3 concerns for the construction of it. Froz and I have basically the same house, and as they had said, we have the same floor plan. The houses are 22 feet wide, built on a 25-foot lot. So between our houses, there's a 3-foot alleyway that runs from front to back. And that alleyway is always, in San Bruno, has been always considered as a fire egress for the back of the houses. Traditionally had a gate on each side behind the house. So they're very close together. Also, the fire department has always come out every year and inspected that alleyway and made sure there was no obstructions in the alleyway and that kind of thing. It's been going, we've lived there for 50 years. It's gone on every year as an inspection process. And so any kind of construction, we'd like to see that there'd be some kind of a addendum to the permit that states that the alleyway stay clear. We don't want to see any building materials stashed there overnight. I've got an old elderly mother that lives there, and she's sometimes has to make trips to the hospital. 911 has to get her out that way. And so we don't want to see any building materials in there. We want them carried through. The property line also runs right down the middle of the alleyway. So, I mean, he owns 18 inches, we own 18 inches. So there's, we have another problem with the sewer lines. The sewer lines come together as one sewer. We have we share a sewer line. The pipes come down the back of the house. They go down through the cement in the alleyway, Y in, and then it's one sewer line to the street. So I noticed that on his plans on the first floor, he's changing around some of the bathroom pipes. And I'm concerned with them going through the foundation and into the main sewer line. I want to see, you know, somebody that's licensed, a licensed plumber, do that. And because they would be obstructing our sewer line, I want to see it. I want to see them get in and out quickly, you know, so that we don't have a disruption on our sewer. And then the last concern I have is liability. On our side, back there at the back of his, where he's going to build, I can see, you know, people coming through the alleyway with materials, and they'd be partially on our property. And also, any kind of construction back there, I can see staging or scaffolding going up, and the foot would be on our, at least half of it would be on our, physically on our property. So I'm concerned about liability. I think he's got to come up with some kind of mechanism to assume any kind of liability for injury, you know, from the construction guys or damage to our house. You know, just because it's physically so close. You know, his new section's got a setback of 1'6", but if you put a piece of staging in there, I know that the staging will be over on our property. So I'm concerned with him coming up with a mechanism to absolve us of any liability, you know, so that, you know, we're not responsible for somebody flipping off a ladder or scaffolding or something like that, you know. And I'd like to see that as a condition to his permit. Otherwise, I support his project completely.
Through the chair.
Thank you. One moment. I'd like to ask staff, I saw you discussing this. It looks like these are all valid points, and I know enough about some of them to know that the city would, well, most cities would want those sewers split in any case during a substantial amount of construction, because the typical requirement is each house has a line that goes all the way to the street. But let me ask staff, do you have suggestions on how to approach these three items?
You know, let me start, and I think the city attorney will add additional information. But to start with, the construction that will occur will be done with benefit of a permit, a building permit, and we'll go through a plan check, plan review process. So in terms of the plumbing work that may be done, work done to the sewer line, that would need to be done in accordance with the plumbing code, the adopted plumbing code. It would be inspected, and the city would review that. So we would have that check in place. In terms of the alleyway area, that's something that we can look at in terms of trying to keep that clear. There perhaps could be some addition in terms of a condition to address that as far as the ongoing construction activity, and to the extent we can during the inspection our inspectors could review to try to make sure that that's open. We can't guarantee that. Our inspectors periodically go to a property during a period of construction, but they're not there day in and day out or over the weekend. But during standard construction review inspections, we can check to make sure that that condition would be enforced. As far as splitting the sewer, it seems to me that that's probably a private property issue, and as well, the liability during the construction period, probably a private property issue as well, and I think the city attorney probably can comment further on those two aspects.
So with respect to the sewer issue, I think you may be aware that there are a number of properties in the city that unfortunately do have a shared lateral, which then connects with the main. And I don't believe it's proposed as a condition of approval of this project that each property install its own separate sewer lateral. So having said that, the condition of the shared lateral exists now and is proposed to exist afterward. And I think, as David said, the building permit process can be used to make sure that any disruption to the shared sewer is as minimal as possible. But of course, that potential for disruption exists again now if there's a blockage caused by either one of the houses. As for the liability issue, I think the city does see that as an issue privately, as between the two property owners. It's certainly possible that the contractor hired by the owner of this property that's under review could ask that contractor to include an endorsement in their liability policy that would protect the neighbor from any incidents, in as much as the fact it's rather unusual for the contractor to have to be accessing the applicant's property from the neighbor's property. And so I can understand that concern, but that's probably something that could be fairly easily worked out with the property owner's contractor to make sure there's an endorsement that protects the neighboring property owner when the contractor is traversing the neighbor's property in the course of construction.
So at the back, he would just be encroaching. Like I said, if you put a set of staging on there, one side of the stage would be on the property. So I could be held liable if somebody flipped off of that.
Sir, the protocol is, the correct protocol is for you to address the chair, and I'll pass the questions on to staff. And I'd like to get your comment on the recording. Could you step to the podium and say that again, please? Very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, the encroachment that I was referring to is if the staging was at the back of the house on the north side, scaffolding is at least 3 feet wide, and it would 2 of the feet would be physically on my property. So that would lead, if somebody flipped off the staging or put a ladder up, the feet of the ladder would be on my property too, and that would leave me open to some kind of litigation if somebody flipped off a ladder or something. So I'm really concerned with that. And that's really my main concern for this project.
Thank you very much.
Through the chair, I have a question for you.
Okay, 1 second. Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Carnlin, I wanted to check with you. I mean, I certainly understand your concerns. Also, when you have a shared piping, I wanted to know, have there been any plumbing issues in past years?
No, the owner before Mr. Frost bought the house, though, put it, you were talked about the illegal second unit. They went in and without our okay, and they dug a hole in the alleyway and clipped in to put a Y in the pipe originally. This was probably a decade and a half ago, but they had gone in without our permission. I came home from work and the hole was dug, filled up already, and they had already connected up for a second unit. So what's down there, I don't even know if it's legal, if it has the right banding on the plumbing or not, anything that's up to code. I'm a contractor too, so I know a little bit about this. But I don't know if it's code. We haven't had any problems or any issues with backups or anything like that. Okay. It's always been okay.
Well, the important part is, right now, when things are being taken apart, this is a good time to take a look at things. So if there was a historical if there was historical plumbing issues, this is the time to take a look at it, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that there have not.
Well, looking at his set of prints, I'm not at all sure that he's going to have to dig a hole again in the alleyway anyway and hook up to the 4-inch. You know, I mean, he's going to have an extra bathroom downstairs, and, you know, I don't know if he can run his 2 inches within the house, you know, on the bottom floor, and just connect the two and then leave the existing 4-inch that's in there. But originally it was done illegally, so,
Thank you.
okay.
It wasn't Mr. Frost.
I'd like to ask Mr. Frost to step to the podium and make any observation he'd like to about this situation.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, that he was mentioning the owner before. I mean, I did not do any construction since I bought the house. All the thing that he mentioned, the illegal unit built and all the construction and sewerage was done, I just want to make sure he was talking about the owner before me. Since I moved in, I have not done any construction, any kind of thing in this house since I own it. So I just want to make sure that was clear. He was talking about the owner before did all
Right.
that work.
All right, thank you very much.
And the second, if I may add, on page number 12, if you look at my house, there's 2 alleys, one on the right and one on the left-hand side. And I totally respect that, and my intent is not to use the alley that he's referring to his side of the house. I mean, most of my work will be done to the alley on the left-hand side if you're facing the house. And that's where my bigger door, wider door is also located in the back of the house. And I totally respect his wishes, like he said, to make sure that we clear that alley just in case if his mother, anything for reason that is emergency that he need emergency exit. And I think I have no problem just respecting and honoring his request. And the other two, just you know, our city attorney recommended. I mean, I can definitely discuss with my contractor. It's something that we can add that also will, you know, be able to, you know, address his concerns. Thank you.
And if I may, through the chair, just as a friendly piece of advice, although not, of course, legal advice, the property owner might wish to check with his own homeowner's insurance carrier. They may be able to issue an endorsement, a temporary endorsement for the period of time that the construction is going on. So I think coordination between the homeowner's insurance carrier and the contractor's insurance carrier probably resolve your private issue.
Okay. Mr. Frost, would it be acceptable to you if there were a condition that stated that you would maintain, during construction, maintain the access in the alley between the 2 houses, and that you would look into addressing the liability of accessing that, doing construction work from that alley during the project?
Yeah, I mean, if you're referring to make sure that I keep that alley clear all the
Right.
time,
Right.
that'll be totally acceptable for me to put that in there. That would be acceptable.
Right, well, and I think the objective is to keep it clear all the time, but that doesn't mean you can't go in there and work.
No, I understand
And then
that.
get out of the way if someone needs to use it.
No, I understand that.
Right.
Make sure that when the work is ended, anytime the work is not, or nobody walking around, make sure the alley stays clear of any hazards, anything like that.
And would you accept that part of the condition is that you check your insurance to cover occupying part of the alley that's not yours during the construction?
No, can you repeat that again?
Would it be acceptable to you that the condition indicate that you will verify that your insurance that's enforced during the construction address any use of the adjacent property alley?
I mean, I definitely will be able to check with my insurance, see what is there, what is in my home liability policy has to address that. But I can't say that I will take that as a yes, that I will take assume all the liability. I mean, whatever, like I said, I mean, between him and I can work it out like as a private party that's been mentioned.
Well,
But I would not take that as a condition.
I'll
but-
include that as a condition, you'll look into it. How about that?
as a condition, then I will look into that. Yeah,
Right.
I will be okay with that statement.
As a practical matter, and this is not legal advice, if you don't arrive at an agreeable position, it's going to make it very difficult, he could make it very difficult for you to do any work in there at all.
You know, I totally understand. Him and I have very good relationship, and I'd like to continue that. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we closely work and address this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners have questions of staff? No. We're still in the middle of the public hearing. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring the matter back to the commission for discussion and action.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
Just a question at this point. You know, I totally understand, you know, part of your additional condition of approval, but are we, especially in the particularly dealing with keeping the alleyway clean at all times and clear during construction, but are we able to put into the condition of approval that they, you know, look into the insurance aspect of it? I'm just kind of curious if that's, because that's not, I mean, I can't recall ever doing that before, that's all.
I'll refer
I guess
that
we could
to
put
staff.
anything in a condition if the applicant agrees to it, but.
Right.
Sure, I think it's not unreasonable, and it is related to the fact that these properties have a very small side setback, which is really not sufficient for any sort of construction activities, and but for that situation, there wouldn't really need to be any such consideration, and it wouldn't, because it wouldn't occur that the construction would have to be staged or would encroach onto the neighbor's property. It's true that this is really a private matter between the parties, but I think as suggested, the condition would merely say that the property owner is going to look into it and, you know, make best efforts to come to an accommodation about that with the neighbor. So it's not a mandatory requirement in the condition.
Thank you.
Through the chair?
Commissioner Chase.
Luck of the draw. So would the chair consider an additional comment on that condition of approval, you know, stating that just as the city attorney stated, that due to the fact that, you know, the houses are so close together, it's an unusual circumstance, just something to give a little clarity to that part of the looking into the insurance, since I can't recall ever having done that before. In case it ever comes down the road again, at least there's a reason for it, that, because I probably won't remember.
Sure, great idea.
Through the chair?
Commissioner Johnson.
Isn't this typically, and I don't know who, I guess to you, Mark, more of the contractor's issue than it is a homeowner's issue? I mean, they're the responsible party for safety and OSHA requirements and all those specifics. So certainly the homeowner can take a look at it, but I would expect that it would be the contractor's responsibility ultimately to follow all the appropriate guidelines and restrictions and code of, you know, codes.
You're correct, it would be. However, if the contractor did not, for example, have insurance that covered activities on somebody else's property, the property owner, merely by virtue of the fact that the activities were occurring on their property, might be liable. And so that's why I'm suggesting that the property owner coordinate both with his own homeowner's insurance carrier and also with the contractor's insurance to make sure that there are endorsements that cover the situation for the time the construction's going on.
And that would be my expectation. That would be handled through the homeowner and the contractor, because ultimately,
Correct.
it is the contractor's responsibility to be in compliance with all areas, and accidents do happen.
That's
But all
right.
of the things are in place to, everything's been done that could be done.
Right. However, ultimately, the property owner is responsible for what happens on
Correct.
his property, and so that's the reason
Ultimately.
for the suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair,
Commissioner Chase.
if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion that we approve use permit 13-018 based on findings of fact 1 through 6, conditions of approval 1 through 27, 27 being the new one.
Through the chair, if I could, it seems like there are maybe two additional conditions here, And staff could offer some wording for those conditions based on the comments of our city attorney and also commissioners. Pertaining to the shared alleyways, the condition language could be, the applicant shall keep shared alleyways adjoining the residence free and clear for movement of persons during the construction period. The second condition could read, the applicant shall investigate and obtain as feasible additional insurance coverage for construction activity on adjoining properties, given the close proximity of those adjoining properties, as suggested language.
I think that's good. You might add that the homeowner would form an understanding of the contractor's insurance coverage as well as his, because they'd have to coordinate those.
We could add to that second condition that the applicant shall coordinate with the contractor to investigate and obtain as feasible, et cetera. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great, thank you.
Through the chair, could you please repeat the first new condition that you were?
I'd be happy to, sure.
Thank you.
The first proposed condition is the applicant shall keep shared alleyways adjoining the residence free and clear for movement of persons during the construction period.
For movement of persons?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, wait, through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
That's actually two additional conditions, and I only had it down as one. So actually it'd be conditions of approval 1 through 28 instead of 27.
Correct.
Second.
Commissioner Misha is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and there'll be a 10-day appeal period. Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll move on to item 5B, which is a request for a temporary use permit to allow off-site construction staging areas within the Crestmore neighborhood per section 128430 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you. The site is located on the northwest corner of San Bruno Avenue West and Glenview Drive. It is undeveloped and has been used over the years for occasional storage by Caltrans, parking for recreational users that are using the local trail, and in some circumstances, some overflow parking. As the Commission is aware, the rebuilding of the infrastructure in the Crestmore neighborhood has been ongoing since the explosion and fire. The subject site has been used for construction staging to support that infrastructure work. You'll probably recall that in April of 2012, before you was a temporary use permit for what's described in your staff report as storage yard number 1. And then in April of 2013, that TUP was extended, so there was another one a year later. And then staff came back to you of June of 2013 in order to amend that temporary use permit to add the storage lot number 2. And so basically, after the contractor was selected for that phase of the infrastructure work and that kind of work program was developed further, we found that additional storage yard capacity was needed. So for the last year, those storage yards have been, are a little less than a year, in operation at those 2 locations. And so the exhibit shows those 2 different storage yards that have been in operation for almost a year. And the current application is to continue to use storage lot number 1 and number 2 in the same manner for an additional year. So just as a reminder, the use of land for construction staging and material storage requires a temporary use permit from the Planning Commission. And those temporary use permits are good for 1 year. And so that's why this work has been before you a number of times. Staff did anticipate needing it for longer than the year, but this is what the code requires in order to come back to you. You might also recall that the previous application included the fire station location at 1999 Earl. So that was in the previous TUP, but that area is no longer needed for construction staging, so is not included in this application. So the two existing construction staging areas are not proposed to change with this application. And there was considerable interest from the public about the parking area that's furthest south of the slot that's used by residents to access the trails. That area has remained open for parking for the general public this entire time and is proposed to remain that way. So there'll be no reduction in the parking that's available to residents that are using it for recreational purposes. The conditions of approval from the previous temporary use permit are carried forward with this request, but there are some minor changes, and those are discussed on page 3 of the staff report. Conditions of approval number 8 and 11 have been proposed to be modified to reflect some of the practical site constraints that have been encountered in the field. So some clarifications and some wording changes have been included on those two conditions. The remainder of the conditions are proposed to carry forward from the previous temporary use permit. Crestmore Rebuilding Project Manager Harry Burrows is here tonight and available to answer any questions. If you have questions, kind of technical questions regards to those staging areas and how they're used or the overall infrastructure project. We sent the required legal notice out. We have not received any comments on the construction staging yard. We did receive one phone call that was just a question about exactly where it was located, but they didn't have any concerns once we discussed the location of it. So staff would recommend approval of the temporary use permit, subject to conditions 1 to 13, as outlined in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and again, Harry Burrows is here as well.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Johnson.
This is probably not related to the storage area, but what is the relationship I see the parking where the trail parking is, that it states that it's Church of the Highlands and has a sign there, and I'm not quite clear the usage of that. Can you just give me an update or
Yeah,
understanding?
the property is owned by Caltrans, and Church of the Highlands leases that property. They have a longer-term lease, and Church of the Highlands makes it available to members of the public, and they have committed to do that on an ongoing basis.
Okay, so I don't see typically, I mean, I live in that area, so I don't typically see large amounts of cars there. So I wondered if the Church of the Highlands was actually using it, because I basically see trail work primarily, or trail parking and short-term. And
That has been the primary use of it for quite some time. They have on rare occasions when they have larger events going on at the church. They actually have used it for overflow parking and have shuttled their community members back and forth from that lot. And they have discussed with staff other potential uses for it or recreational uses, but there's been no application for any of those other uses.
okay, thank you for the information.
Any other commission questions for staff before the public hearing? Okay, I'll open.
Chair.
Commissioner Chase?
Just real quickly, I hate to bring it up, but my packet didn't include this particular,
There you go.
no, it's okay, I understand what it's all about, but I just didn't know if I should, make mention, maybe I just ought to double check. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'll share mine.
No, it's good, I'm good on it now, believe me, I read it, thank you.
All right, the public hearing is open. Any members of the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, bring the matter back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
Through the chair, if there's no discussion,
Commissioner Mishra.
I move that we approve, of the Planning Commission approve the temporary use permit 14-001 based on findings of fact 1 through 3 and conditions of approval 1 through 13.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And there's a 10-day appeal period. Item number 6 is discussion. 6A, city staff discussion.
Chair Peterson, there are no additional discussion items from staff this evening.
Okay, 6B, planning commission discussion.
Through the chair,
Commissioner Mishra.
I'd like to request the staff, if they can let me know why 5C was continued?
We'd be happy to. On 5C, since the staff report went out, we received some additional comments from other reviewing departments, and we've not really had a chance to go through those in detail and sit down with those staff members and discuss and respond to those comments. So we need to do that, and when we've done that, we'll bring the item back to you.
Through the chair, second question. Would this establishment be licensed by the County of San Mateo, the Health Department?
It would in terms of county health, yes.
I would want to see what preliminary comments they would have, because this sort of a lounge is unique. My culture and my people actually drink the kava drink, and it's, there's discussions about zero waste, and that's not really true. This does have a byproduct of getting rid of the pounded material, and just wanted to see what the counties thought about this kind of an establishment.
Okay. We'll see what we can do about that.
Great, thanks.
Any other planning commission comments? For the commission's information, there's was a architectural review meeting last Thursday that wasn't able to be completed, and that meeting has been rescheduled to this Thursday. So in case you would wanted to attend for some reason, there you are. Any other commission comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll adjourn.